Welcome back to another video. This one takes us to Rochester, New York, November 30, 2023. It's a cold, basically winter night in New York. Julian Coleman, 49, calls EMTs for himself because he's having difficulty breathing. American Medical Response, aka AMR, responds to the scene. He's in the back of the ambulance being treated by a younger female EMT. Allegedly, she said he became aggressive with her. He grabbed her by the arm. Turns out that Mr. Coleman was panicking, fearing for his life, having trouble breathing, grabbed the EMT by her arm. She then calls police. There's literally no bad situation in life that police can't find a way to make worse. That's what I seem to be learning about them. So they come to the back of the ambulance where he's being treated. And she's saying she doesn't know what's going on with the guy. He's acting weird. He grabbed her arm. He's got to go. So what does the cop do? He tells Julian Coleman to sit on the sidewalk and wait for another ambulance. Within seconds, he falls to the ground off a park bench and is left face down on the concrete for over 2 minutes, which we all know, heart attack, pulmonary embolism, stroke, whatever it might be, that is life and death. Each second really is. He remained hospitalized, and on December 15th, Julian Coleman succumbed to his injuries and passed away. So prayers to the family of this man who died senselessly by the careless act of EMTs and New York police. I can't find the words to describe how upsetting and sad just all around this is. What a poor job, what a careless, heartless group of people collectively working against someone's civil rights and humanity. Let's get into this one because it is not good. This is a train wreck.
The mayor of Rochester now demanding an investigation after a patient died after investigators say he was kicked out of an ambulance.
A body camera video shows the patient behaving erratically when he was kicked out. Minutes passed before he was given medical attention, and then he collapsed, dying 2 weeks later.
Here's Eyewitness News anchor Mike Marza.
Rochester Mayor Malik Evans sounding off over an incident involving emergency responders.
I am deeply committed to transparency, as you know, and to continuing to build trust between the community and government. So I'm here today to share that I have just learned about an incident that has me deeply concerned.
Moments after this press conference, the city released body-worn and blue light camera video of the November 30th incident. Police say they were called to the ambulance to address what was described as an assault of the EMTs on board.
I don't know what's wrong with him, but he will not get out of our truck.
Okay.
And he's got to go.
Sir, it's a wrap. Looks like they want you out.
On the body camera video, you can hear an officer explaining to the patient the EMTs want him out of the ambulance. An EMT tells an officer the patient jumped at her, grabbed her, and would not let her go. That patient then tells the officer that he couldn't breathe.
Freaking out.
All right.
You freak out too if you can't breathe.
I hear you. I probably try to control myself a little bit better.
We want to warn you, the next part of this video is tough to watch. A blue light camera shows the man sitting on the sidewalk, then collapsing. More than 2 minutes pass before he's given medical care. The patient died more than 2 weeks later. The mayor says the man's family tells him it was from this health emergency.
Ambulance services are vital for our community, and we must learn from this situation.
So I'm going to do my very best to explain what you just witnessed because I myself really don't understand the level of depravity that that woman has to possess to kick a man who's coughing and wheezing in front of her and that stupid cop. He's clearly not well, and she's so concerned with her own well-being, so self-centered, so self-righteous that she demands he leave immediately. And then he asks just for a ride to the hospital. Oh, you had that chance. What are they operating on, a 3-strike rule? What was the second strike? Okay? No one really knows what happened in that ambulance, but I can guarantee you whatever it was, if they were that fearful of this man, honestly, they could have just put him in a handcuffed him to the gurney, like they do with many criminals that they pull from DUI wrecks who live, and they'll cuff them up and put them in a gurney and send them off to the ER. But this guy, they leave in the street? So, yes, they give literal criminals who just killed people in a wreck more care than they gave this completely innocent bystander. Let that sink in for a minute. Not all cops and EMTs are heroes. Not all. Some of them, sure, have definitely pulled off heroic feats. But there's a lot of them who are seeking out an occupation for certain reasons, other than helping people. You have people who do it for the sole purpose of serving themselves, for serving their own belly. There's a lot of people that become nurses and doctors, and all they can do is talk about how special they are. I've seen this myself. I've met these people. I've had conversations with people like that where you can tell that they can't stop talking about their numerous accolades and successes. So is it really about their patients? No, it's about how it makes them feel to help people. And sure, the net result might be good. People get helped. They feel good about themselves. That's fine. I'm not knocking that on its face. But when you see someone who's so self-centered and so blinded that they can't see a man who's dying in front of them, that's the point that we've reached here, is that your ability to discern whether someone is in dire need of help or not, and your feelings about a situation get in the way of that, you're disqualified.
I don't know what's wrong with him, but he will not get out of our truck.
Okay.
And he's got to go.
Sir, it's a wrap. Looks like they want you out.
I couldn't breathe.
They want you out, sir. No fight at
We
this
tried
time.
to help,
They're just
honey,
trying to get him
but
out.
the way that you got in here and the way that you just jumped at us, that was no.
All right, sir. Come on.
way of
Come on.
somebody asking for help.
No games. Get out.
All right, I'm getting out.
Thank you.
No, thanks. No. Oh. Ooh.
Okay.
I'm good. 277 out. Oxygen.
Honey, you told us you had pain from drinking water, and then you came in and you jumped at me and my brother and demanded oxygen. You would not let go of me.
247, same traffic. 47, same traffic.
He grabbed my apartment.
I was freaking out.
All right.
You freak out too if you can't breathe.
I hear you. I probably try to control myself a little bit better. I'm not going to grab on anybody. You know what I mean?
No, I was trying to grab for the door.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Okay.
Try
Okay.
to
Now's your chance. All right. All right.
Oh, thank you.
Is that all you guys want, though? Then just out.
277, should be separate cars.
Just grab that yellow handle right there, and that should help you out.
277, all set for cars.
Did you take me to the hospital, man?
No.
We tried to take you, but honey, that was unacceptable. There was no reason for that. There was no issue.
There's a yellow handle right next to you. All right, or not.
So I don't think we were 2 minutes in, and I'm sure all of you are watching with bated breath to see what in the actual F is going on here. I see so many deliberate infractions under the color of law and under the color of medical care being made here. They're not mistakes, they're infractions. Malpractice, no duty of care whatsoever, no standard of care whatsoever. This is the lawsuit that you're looking at right here. The blonde woman that's saying, that's no way to X for help, no honey, you gotta go, is Nicole Kuntz. I'm not going to say that last name the way it should be said, and I thought it ironic when I saw it. Moving on, the other one is Melanie Torres. The officer talking to him is Christopher Morales. Those are the names we're dealing with. Let's continue with the video. I'm warning you, it's not easy to watch. 30
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Is that blood or is it?
Yeah, it's blood.
Oh,
I don't know what the hell happened. He was laying on the ground. I'm gonna find out now.
okay.
Bye. Boss.
Oh, snoring breathing. All right. I grabbed your phone.
I know I don't have to articulate all the subtle things that are happening here, but I can't help with this one. First, he sees blood and he tells his supervisor, I don't know what happened. He was laying on the ground. What's he doing laying on the ground would be my question. But since they're all on body worn camera, they act as everything is copacetic, perfectly normal. Okay, he says, we're going to find out what happened. Then he lets out what sounds like a snore. If anyone isn't completely familiar with that, it's called agonal breathing. It sounds like you're snoring. I've heard this type of breathing come from people who were just shot in the head. And I think a lot of you know that this means someone is near death. It's akin to a death rattle. It says here an abnormal, reflexive, and ineffective pattern of slow gasping breaths or snoring sounds, usually indicating severe brain oxygen deprivation and imminent death, such as during cardiac arrest. It is not normal breathing, but a final reflexive attempt to survive, occurring in 40 to 60% of cardiac arrests. I don't have to say anything else. And you saw how they tried to play that off like it was no big deal when they all know damn well this shit just got real.
Let's roll him over. What happened? Just lay down.
I'm starting to lie down.
Oh my god.
Grab my monitor.
Is your car locked?
It's unlocked. Monitor and drug box.
Seems to be a poll cam, so there's no sound, there's no audio. Let me just tell you that neither one of these EMTs were trained to do that. This is something that stems from their own personal convictions on when they're being too inconvenienced to treat a person. And now look at them running in panic mode as Julian Coleman lie motionless, face down on the cold concrete on Seneca Ave, New York, in Rochester, 2 a.m. on November 30th. That's how he spent his last moments, face down on the cold concrete because some 20-something woman was too stupid to realize that this man had life-threatening symptoms. And the cop was even dumber because he comes and he's at her every beck and command. Let me guess, she's a cute blonde? So you're gonna white knight for her and let a man die? You stupid freaking idiot. This is him getting out of the ambulance. So we have a different POV. Look at him wobbling. He's clearly not well. There's EMTs everywhere, medical professionals, police, and this guy wobbled over to a park bench to get some reprieve. I don't think I could count to 20 and watch what happens. Can you imagine being this man's family and having to watch that and see these stupid idiots milling around? Look at this cop walk right by him. Explain that to me. I want someone in the comment section give me your best articulation of what I'm watching because I don't know what I'm watching. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I really have never seen anything like this. It's quite unique in the collective cold callousness and stupidity of these people. Now they're literally distancing themselves from him. This went on for over 2.5 minutes. We don't need to Google search or ask a medical professional how life threatening 2.5 minutes becomes when your brain is no longer receiving oxygen from the blood. That is the AMR, American Medical Response Supervisor Gregory Smith, who's shining a light on Julian's face. This is what we call an oh shit moment. So I want to go over some of the lawsuit because I think it captures everything that you just witnessed and it's articulated perfectly and it has all the facts contained. So it starts out November 30, 2023. Julian Coleman was suffering shortness of breath, called 911. So he called 911 himself. I don't know if you've ever had a moment like that. I've had several of them. One of them was a panic attack. I actually have something called vasovagal reaction where your blood pressure will just drop out, like from severe stress, even it can happen, or at the sight of blood. There's certain things that can trigger it for me, and I've literally had to call EMTs on myself because I thought I was dying. Like my body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. And then I tried to get up and I passed out again and hit my head, so they had to examine my head. And so this man was scared and in fear for his life. I just want you to understand, like, that's what's going on here. This is how this started. And his worst fear came true because of the gross negligence of police and EMTs. An ambulance owned and operated by defendant, I'm just going to keep things short here, AMR, even though that's their DBA, they're really called National Ambulance and Oxygen Service. Anyhow, I'm going to continue to refer to them as AMR. And staffed emergency medical technicians, defendants Nicole Kuntz. That is the one who said He needs to go. And Melanie Torres arrived in response to his call and found Julian Coleman waiting near the corner of Seneca Avenue and Norton Street in the city of Rochester, New York. Once loaded into the ambulance, Julian Coleman became panicked by his inability to breathe and grabbed the arm of defendant Kuntz. Defendant Kuntz then refused to assess or transport Julian Coleman to the hospital and placed a distress call to the Rochester PD seeking their assistance in protecting her from physical harm by Julian Coleman. Defendants Christopher Morales, that's the police officer that was telling him, you need to go, it's a wrap, get out, together with defendants Adam White and Nicholas Gifford, hereinafter referred to collectively as defendant police officers, responded to the distress call from the defendant Kuntz and arrived at the scene where the ambulance was parked. Upon their arrival, defendant Kuntz told the defendants, I don't know what's wrong with him, but he will not get out of our truck and he's got to go. At that point, defendant Morales ordered Julian Coleman out of the ambulance. Julian Coleman objected, telling defendant Morales he couldn't breathe and needed to go to the hospital, but defendant Morales ignored his plea and repeated his demand that Julian Coleman get out of the ambulance. Julian Coleman, in obvious physical distress and demonstrably suffering from severe shortness of breath, followed the order of defendant Morales and staggered out of the ambulance. To me, this is all perfectly accurate. It captures what happened in its entirety. So I'm going to read a little more of this. There's 75 paragraphs here. I'm not going to read them all, but I want to go through some key points that I've read through to wrap up this sad case and death of Julian Coleman, who these people should forever remember and what they did that day, because they're not going to do any prison time. Okay, spoiler alert, as far as I know, there have been no arrests made in this case. This is a civil lawsuit. Okay, this is not a criminal charge. It's very rare that non-action causes a criminal charge. Okay, so their inability to act was willful, and that's where I look at it as a crime and it should be charged criminally. Because as a direct result of their willful inability to act, he died. So they assisted and conspired in causing his death. You can leave a comment, and if you disagree with me, I understand. But please articulate why you would disagree that these people together did not conspire to cause the death of this man. It continues to say, once out of the ambulance, Julian Coleman was ordered by defendant Morales to proceed over to the sidewalk, where Julian Coleman, doing as he was ordered, proceeded to the bench only a few yards away from the parked ambulance, while defendant Morales and the other defendant police officers conducted an investigation of what happened to prompt defendant Kuntz to make a distress call. At approximately the same time, defendant Gregory Smith, this is the paramedic supervisor for AMR, arrived at the scene. Within a few seconds of sitting down on the bench, Julian Coleman collapsed and fell to the ground. For the next approximately 3 minutes, Julian Coleman remained motionless on the ground as defendants Kuntz, Torres, Smith, and defendant police officers milled around in plain sight of his motionless body, taking no action to evaluate his condition or provide medical assistance. There's no exaggeration there. Finally, after Julian Coleman had gone approximately 3 minutes without breathing and without a pulse, defendant Netin approached where Julian had been lying motionless and shined a flashlight on him. Defendant Netin then notified defendant Smith that Julian Coleman had blood coming out of his mouth. Defendant Smith finally approached where Julian Coleman had been lying motionless for approximately 3 minutes and determined he was in cardiopulmonary arrest. Defendant Smith called out to his co-workers, defendants Kuntz and Torres, to bring the necessary equipment to attempt resuscitation. As a result of the acts and omissions of defendants, including the deliberate indifference to his medical needs, Julian Coleman suffered an irreversible brain injury. He subsequently died from his injuries December 15th, 2023. Okay, there's no embellishing there. These are the straight facts. You all saw it. No one is making any statements from the other side. They've all turned down any offers to make a comment. He was ultimately diagnosed with an anoxic brain injury. That's severe lack of oxygen to the brain. It's the death of the brain, essentially. And so here goes the lawsuit, right? So we can read through a couple of bullet points here. There's a lot of them. I just want to get through some of the ones that I think are very pertinent and highlighted. So it starts out, This is an action brought pursuant to 42 U.S.C. 1983 to redress the deprivation under color of law of Julian Coleman's rights as secured by the United States Constitution. This court has jurisdiction over plaintiffs' federal and state law claims pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1331 and 1367. Defendant Christopher Morales, remember this is the one that was talking to Julian Coleman, telling him he had to leave the ambulance, is a Rochester police officer who at all times relevant to this action was acting under color of law and within the scope of his employment as a Rochester police officer. Upon information and belief, Defendant Morales resides in the Western District of New York. Defendant Jonathan Netton is a Rochester police officer who at all times relevant to this action was acting under color of law and within the scope of his employment as a Rochester police officer. Okay, so it lists off the names of each police officer. I'm not going to read this because it's kind of repetitive, but I'm going to scroll down here and you can see it's got them all listed so you can see their names and you can see where they work. And then the last one is AMR, where it says upon information and belief, defendant AMR is a domestic corporation with a principal place of business at 811 West Avenue, Rochester, New York. In response to a request for proposals issued by the City of Rochester Fire Department, defendant AMR entered into a contract on October 31, 2020 with the city to provide EMS within the city. Pursuant to this contract, Rochester Fire Department was designated as the primary responder and defendant AMR was to provide exclusive emergency services and standby services at emergency scene to the city and its residents. Here's a part where I'll pick up again. This is 31. Less than a minute after being removed from the ambulance by defendant Morales and instructed to wait on the bench on the sidewalk, Julian Coleman collapsed onto the ground and did not move. Defendant police officers and defendant Kuntz, Torres, and Smith all witnessed Julian's collapse, or seconds after his collapse, observed him motionless lying prostrate on the ground. None of the defendants went to check on Julian Coleman's medical status for approximately 3 minutes. I would like y'all to set the timer on your phone to 3 minutes. And imagine a man who's not breathing for 3 minutes with EMTs surrounding him. This is freaking surreal. I question reality when I see something like this. This is not only gross negligence, it's a complete disregard for human life, and you're an EMT and PD. It's almost like you're living in a bizarro world. These people should be locked up. The civil lawsuit is just all they can do at this point. Yes, Kuntz got fired, but it doesn't name her in the firing. The most I can find is one of the EMTs was fired 3 months later. Maybe it was Smith, the supervisor. I doubt it. He arrived afterward. He's the one who shined the light on Coleman, and then they started providing care when it was too late. Then it says in 33, by the time Julian Coleman's heart was restarted, so his heart was completely stopped. All they had to do was give him oxygen. All they had to do was take him to the hospital. He would have survived. They caused his death. Prove me wrong. By the time Julian Coleman's heart was restarted and oxygen was provided, Julian Coleman's brain had suffered permanent and irreversible brain damage due to a lack of oxygen. Julian Coleman was transported to Rochester General Hospital, where he arrived shortly before 3 a.m. on November 30, 2023. At the time of his arrival, Julian Coleman was unresponsive and in critical condition. Blood testing performed on his arrival at RGH was consistent with severe hypoxia with an elevated blood CO2 level and severely decreased blood pH level and other laboratory results consistent with metabolic and respiratory acidosis and hypoxia. A CT scan was performed shortly after his arrival at RGH, which was interpreted as being consistent with early signs of an anoxic brain injury. Julian Coleman never regained consciousness after collapsing, subsequent to being ordered out of the ambulance and temporarily detained by defendant Morales. He was admitted to the ICU at RGH, where he was kept alive by mechanical respiration. An MRI performed on December 4, 2023 confirmed the suspected diagnosis of anoxic brain injury. Due to the lack of any potential for recovery of brain function, the physicians at RGH caring for Julian Coleman recommended removal of life support, and Julian Coleman died on December 15, 2023, as a result of the brain injury suffered on November 30, 2023, when he was denied essential medical care by defendants. Okay, and this will go into the counts that are against them. I wish this was criminal. This, you guys can check this out if you want online. I'll leave the link in my description. You can read through the entire lawsuit. It has all the facts and details in it. I also have one that I marked that I wanted to read as well. This is a bit repetitive, but it will hammer home the point of the negligence of these people. So it says in 66, defendant police officers were negligent, grossly negligent, and recklessly indifferent to the welfare of Julian Coleman when they witnessed his collapse and failed to provide any assistance after removing him from the ambulance and detaining him to conduct their investigation. The acts and omissions of defendant police officers were all committed within the scope of their employment and duties, and defendant city is liable under the doctrine of responding superior. As a direct and proximate result of the negligence, gross negligence, reckless indifference, and intentional abandonment by defendant police officers, Julian Coleman incurred unnecessary physical and emotional pain and suffering and was caused to die. Do you agree? So say one, so say we all. They caused his death. And so I'm not going to continue to read through this because it's just more redundant paragraphs on what these people are being held civilly liable for. Unfortunately, it's only civil. The man did die, so I have hope that criminal charges can be brought at any time. I just don't think it's going to happen. Prayers to the family that they recover. His brother said that he went through a state of temporary insanity after he built up the nerve to watch that video. Absolutely appalling. There's nothing else I could say. I just hope that they find peace in their hearts one day. May God be with them. Until my next video, y'all take care, be safe out there, and remember, you have the right to remain silent.